this collection is inspired by North Wales and Snowdonia, and also the coastal parts of that part of Wales. And having recently moved to the Shropshire Hills, I was just kind of surrounded by this dramatic kind of quite scenic landscape that made me really want to kind of interpret that with my painting. And then that kind of translated onto the ceramics as well. So this piece here is one of my most recent paintings. That's basically inspired by the mountain ranges that you come across when you're driving through from Shropshire to, I think it was where I was going to Abersoch on the North Wales coast. And I was just struck by the kind of mist and the way you can kind of only see a hint of the mountain ridge line. You're kind of looking through trees and mist, and kind of it's just more of a kind of atmosphere. They have a presence. The mountains have this presence that's kind of almost like it stopped me in my tracks. I had to get out of the car and take pictures, and that was how that painting kind of emerged. And then the ceramics, they've always been inspired by coastal landscapes, but now I'm finding them kind of evolving a bit more into the landscape that I find myself living in, which is the mountain ranges, because I feel like there's something to be said about that kind of presence of a mountain, which you can kind of feel rather than and necessarily see. Sometimes it's very like an awesome feeling. It's like you want to kind of capture that, which is something I'm doing with when I say I'm painting abstract landscapes. They're capturing that feeling rather than describing exactly what they look like. So I like to see my ceramics as almost usable pieces of art. So they do have a function, they can be used, but they can also just exist on their own. So that's why I like it when plates are on the wall, or there's a vase with no flowers. It's just, it can be like an object that can be enjoyed rather than used as. But in terms of hand building, I think I came to that because I actually tried throwing on the wheel, and I just didn't like the lack of control. I felt like out of control somehow. So with hand building, I roll my clay out flat, and then I can sort of assemble, cut shapes and assemble the pieces according to how I'm feeling on that day. It's not like there's no prescribed method. I think I always need a starting point for me to want to paint. So this painting was actually produced in Iceland when I went to paint on a residency there in the north coast of Iceland. So, I mean, I very much felt inspired by that landscape. And then when I was back here in the UK, I was trying to evoke that feeling again. So what I'll do is I'll imagine the place, or I'll have photographs, and then I will, initially, it's a kind of like battle between, am I painting a specific place, or am I just going to let this one go? But I think a lot of I'm trying to just recreate that again, that feeling that I had while I was there. So it's sort of, the abstraction comes from some paintings can be a little bit more specific. So you can kind of tell that that is a painting about the sea, whereas this piece here, this is called Shimmer. This is inspired by a collection of places that I went to when I was visiting, when I first moved to Shropshire. So I was going into Wales, and we were looking at different places to live, and we were driving around, and we sort of, there's one particular place I remember that was a waterfall that we had to stop the car and get out and look, and it was kind of that place triggered me wanting to paint my idea of a waterfall. But it was then other places that we saw that also, again, like coastal landscapes, are kind of the light across water that you get when you're on the beach, and it's kind of an imagined sort of like almost like a haze that you can kind of see. That painting encapsulates a few different places, so it has become more abstract. It's, yeah, embodies all of them. I tend to start with a mark. So I, with a blank canvas, I'm just working from one point, which is, I won't sort of sketch out compositionally or anything like that. I'll just start with a mark, which is kind of in an attempt to capture the feeling that I'm having when I'm surrounded by the landscape. So it's almost like that will set the tone for the painting. So, and then from then on, it's just a case of seeing where that goes. So there'll always be one kind of horizon line that then leads to others. Or I sometimes rotate the canvases and sort of see if they look better one way or another, and then they just emerge. The paintings just kind of happen. It's sort of, there's not really a plan. And it's the same with the ceramics. So there's lots of pouring of the glaze and brush strokes that are just very instinctive and gestural. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I was making my art for a living. But when I finally took that leap and quit my day job, it was the best thing I've ever done. And it was just, I think the ceramics were the thing that was my sort of springboard, because they were sort of easier to it's a kind of thing where I can make them. It's part of a process that I can just go into the studio and just make without thinking about it too much until it gets to the glazing process, which obviously is a bit more like my painting, whereas the painting needs time to just sit and be, and I can't just go in and paint. It depends on the day, and it depends on where I've been and how I'm feeling. So obviously moving to the countryside, moving to more rural area has really helped with that, because I feel like I'm constantly surrounded by things that I can paint. And the ceramics now have become more like art objects than functional ceramics. So I did enjoy making work for, I was working for Heels, and I was working for restaurants, and I was producing like large batches of the same piece, which was great to have that experience. But I realized it wasn't really for me as an artist. I wanted to make more one-off, more individual pieces, which is what I'm doing now. And so now I can just take that as far as I like, really. I've got big ideas for ceramic paintings. That's really what I want to focus on next. So I'll be making tiles as the kind of canvas, and then painting on them with the glaze. And then also just making much bigger pieces. So I've got larger areas to work with the glazing, because really that's my favourite part of making ceramics, actually. I'm not so much a builder, as more of a painter. Yeah. I really just want people to feel what I'm feeling when I'm in these places that inspire me, because I think that's what we can all do with more of, is nature, and taking it, making it mean something, making it part of your everyday life. If people can take one of my paintings home, and then that will give them a feeling of escapism or relaxation, reflection, all these things that are good for us. That's what I want people to feel when they're looking at my pieces.